Welcome to the second season of Samvadh. I started Ganges Valley School a decade ago with a vision that learning should be a joyful experience. I'm in conversation with our curriculum expert on our curriculum which is developmentally appropriate. Ma'am, would you be able to explain what our curriculum is and how it helps children?
Firstly, I'll elaborate on the word developmentally appropriate. Now, though a lot of schools follow a lot of practices and there are a lot of policies in place, many times educators do not understand what a child's brain is wired to do and what they can achieve at a certain point. So what happens is many children are pushed to read and write in the traditional school system even before they are ready. So our curriculum, if you notice, and you've seen how practically it has worked well,
Yes,
involves domains. A domain is an area, and within that area there are sub-skills.
True.
Each skill is developmentally appropriate, meaning it is in a progression that is already determined by the evolutionary biology and neurological systems that the organism, the child has.
Basically, that means that if your child is not ready physically, emotionally, or intellectually, and we are pushing our children to write, read, this will be a deterrent in the long run.
And what it will lead to is a coping mechanism. Most organisms, when they are put under pressure, they will cope. They'll figure out a way to do it because it's expected of them. But it will lead to what is called a splinter skill, meaning that I will be able to do only that skill with that group of muscles, but I may not be able to use those muscles in anything else. If I were to give you an example, you're forcing me to write in the traditional school system, you're forcing me to write, I will figure out how to use these muscles to write. But I will delay that task as much as possible. I will, make my teacher, my parent really dislike me for it, but I will still figure out a way to do this, but I won't know how to use these muscles to use a scissor or to tie a shoelace. And the more number of splinter skills the child has, the larger the learning gaps. And then this becomes something that has to be intervened at a remedial or a therapeutic level. So in our curriculum, we ensure that that kind of gap does not come into play because we're going with what the brain knows how to do and is wired to do.
Ma'am, how do we understand the parameters that the child is ready for that particular skill?
So that's where child-led learning comes in. By this, we don't mean that the adult is not prepared. The adult is very well prepared with what has to be given. But if you start observing what the children can do, you know what skills they are leading towards.
Can you help us with some example?
Very simple example. Now if the child is ready to write or moving towards writing readiness, they'll take any object and they will start moving it because they are learning how to use an object in space. When I start doing this, I'll also at the same level use my hands to express myself. This is also the child that's going to take an eraser, take an idli, take everything to move. And parents think they're actually wasting time when they're learning how to use an object in space, which is what they will do when they're going to use a pencil or a pen. Okay. So as a parent or as a teacher, when I start looking at what children naturally do, I will be able to gauge what skills they're ready to acquire.
Ma'am, can you also explain what are the various kinds of domain and how do these cover a certain aspects of child's skill set?
Our curriculum has 9 domains, different curriculum models across the globe because we have best practices that we've integrated here. In our curriculum, we use 9 domains and 4 of those are physical. Why it's important to work with the physical is because this is the time that a lot of development is happening at the musculoskeletal level and most of the input goes through the musculoskeletal system and the sensory systems, right? So we have, for example, 20 skills that work on the large muscle groups of the body. Each muscle group actually helps the brain to pick up a higher order skill. I've mentioned in many occasions that when children crawl well, reading is good. Right? When cycling is good, then they have writing that's good. Or when they're able to climb, then they're able to do motor planning and so on. So each of the 20 skills is wires the brain for a higher order skill. And when children miss out those physical skills, they experience a lot more stress while acquiring those skills or unfortunately go into the splinter skills or what we call acquired learning problems. The second set of muscle groups that we work with are the fine motor muscles, including the eye muscles, which are oculomotor muscles. Because we use so many screens, a lot of children actually do not use the eye muscles enough. So in our curriculum, we do work a lot on oculomotor muscles because they're very fine muscles and they have to be developed. The other set of muscles are the, for manual dexterity, to be able to hold a pen or a pencil, scissors, things like that. So we have 5 skills there, knowing by stereognosis, knowing by touch or movement. So fine motor skills work. And then there's the sensory skills where we work with both perception and discrimination. And when I say perception discrimination, a lot of parents will be wondering, so much of mumbo jumbo from science. But at the simplest level, if I have to put it, many schools teach colors as names, red, blue, green on the same day. But for the brain to understand that this is a particular color and it's different from this color, it takes about 3 months.
I see.
So red, for example, they'll be able to pick up first because it's one of the primary colors that children pick up.
But that's how we have a red day, blue day.
Yes.
We go in the particular
So the
order.
red day is actually the culmination of having learnt red. But before that, they have so many activities that go into helping them understand what it is. So color naming is what most schools do. We start with color perception, color discrimination, and then move towards color naming. This way what happens is the child is able to learn without stress and they're able to apply it across situations. And it's not just for color, this is just one example, it's for shape, it's for number, it's for letter, for all levels. So when we go through a system like this, the child learns in the most natural way possible without too many confusions, distractions and testing. And testing also is done in a very playful observation.
And it was always to not stress children through exam at an early age. That doesn't benefit them in any manner. Right, ma'am?
So we do the continuous assessment, which is predominantly observational, because when you put a child in an unhealthy environment or an unnatural environment where you tell them, I will be testing you on these 5 things that you know, a lot of children fail. As opposed to a child who's allowed to express themselves, and then we make the observations that will lead to an assessment, it becomes much better. So we have both the formative, which is assessment for learning, what can I teach further, and the assessment of learning, what I have understood. So this is the balance that we create in our curriculum.
When children come to school, they come from a very protective environment, and they're coming into an environment they have to socially engage with others. How do we inculcate or make them comfortable with this aspect of their journey, ma'am?
At the very young age, they're very egocentric till 7.5. So we help them get a connect with themselves while also becoming used to a peer group.
What do you mean by egocentric? That seems like a word which is very synonymous with all the elders.
Actually, between 2 and 7 years, the children do not have the capacity to see from another perspective. How is egocentricity commonly seen? They will not share their things with anyone, right? Or they will not accept a loss in a game. If they lose a game, nobody else can play. So these are normal for that age, right? Having said that, in our curriculum, we make sure that egocentricity is well respected, while they also learn how to play with an object and take turns with somebody else. Slowly move towards a transition, because especially now with nuclear families, especially post-COVID, a lot of children struggle with social skills. So we make sure that in our curriculum, peer learning is a very, very important part, and that is gradually introduced into all of the activities. And then there is emotional regulation, which is a very important part, and then there is the spiritual domain, which is where they become aligned with themselves. Spirituality is not about religion. It's about being more aligned with the self, and that's something that we bring in. And with the ethos of Ganges, where we have so many values from our own culture, we make sure that it's beautifully integrated into the curriculum as well. The most important aspect of our curriculum is what we build: physical, then the social, emotional, spiritual, and then on top of that is the thinking skills and the language learning.
Obviously, when you don't have these 3, the thinking and the knowledge skill doesn't get developed. So thank you for being part of the curriculum designing and always, helping teachers and children and parents to, I guess any curriculum can become successful when all the stakeholders are aligned and believe in the same thing. And we have been able to successfully implement this curriculum. I have personally seen the children evolve much better with this developmentally appropriate curriculum. Thank you for joining in this episode of Samvadh.